The mayor of Kansas City, Missouri wants to ban landlords from being able to deny Section 8 tenants and wants to fine landlords $1,000 for each denial. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and this one, it hits close to home because it's coming straight out of Kansas City. Now, as I've mentioned before, I am originally from Kansas City, and I still invest in the metropolitan area, not specifically in Kansas City, Missouri, but within Jackson County, Missouri, where Kansas City is located. I invest in Independence, Missouri, which, is right next to Kansas City. So if you see new laws or new rules or regulations passed in Kansas City, it's probably not too far-fetched to say that those same laws, rules, and regulations could move over to where I own real estate. And that's a bad thing, especially when we're talking about being forced to accept Section 8 tenants. And that's exactly what the mayor of Kansas City is proposing right now. He's proposing that landlords are discriminating against, these tenants. And so therefore they should be forced to take those vouchers. They should not have any choice whatsoever. But you keep in mind, there's always a choice. And maybe landlords might say, oh, I accept Section 8 tenants, but they will, if they get a tenant with a voucher, they will find some other reason to deny that person, be it, credit score, be it employment history, be it, income, whatever it is, right? Landlords are going to change up their criteria. They're not going to come out and explicitly say, hey, I'm denying you because you're Section 8, because they would face fines if they did that. Instead, they're going to find other ways around the law. Now, I always say, keep in mind, I always say that you should follow the law, okay? Follow the law within the jurisdiction where you're at. But I am a realist too, and I understand that people have to do what they have to do. And being stuck with a Section 8 tenant when you don't want one, well, a lot of landlords are just going to figure out other ways to not have to deal with that problem. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So are you surprised that there are more and more cities throughout the Midwest, throughout the South, in places that were generally more landlord friendly that are passing these sort of laws and rules and regulations? I personally am not surprised. This is exactly what I've been talking about. The things that you're seeing on the coast, you were seeing this stuff like 5-10 years ago on the coast, in New York, California, etc., right? It's slowly bleeding into the rest of the country until we get to the point where, hey, we've lost a great deal of our property rights that we had a long time ago, right? That's why I bring these articles up. When I talk about New York, I'm looking at what's going to be, coming down the lane here in Omaha, in Kansas City, 5-10 years into the future, okay? The same things are going to be proposed here. And right now, maybe it won't pass, but who knows what the climate is going to look like 10 years from now, okay? So this is a warning sign, and I like to throw these warnings out there so that you can get ready. So anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from kcur.org, and it says, Kansas City mayor wants to ban discrimination against people with housing vouchers. And my personal belief, and I've mentioned this many times before, right? The people who have Section 8 vouchers, right, they don't deserve any sort of special protections, right? The program is voluntary. They when they established the program, it was meant to be voluntary. Landlords should not have to participate in it, in my opinion. And it's complete garbage that they try to force, and I mean force, you to accept tenants that you don't want to put into your property, okay? So yeah, that's my opinion. Let's see what the article says about this proposal. Kansas City landlords can legally refuse to rent to someone with a housing voucher. That's what's happened to renter and KC Tenants leader Ashley Johnson years ago when she was searching for a home for her and her daughter. I contacted over 55 properties just to be told, at this time, we are not taking voucher holders, Johnson said. Eventually, my daughter and I were unhoused because no landlord would accept my housing voucher. And that's a bunch of garbage right there. You weren't unhoused because no landlord would accept your housing voucher. You were unhoused because of your financial situation and your dependence upon the government to pay your rent for you. So when people didn't accept the government check, all of a sudden you were putting into a bad situation. Okay, what you should have done is figured out a way to have somewhere to live. Be that, hey, I'm going to be living at a friend or family member's house temporarily until I can get back on my feet, or, and then in order to get back on your feet, if you got to work one job, if you got to work two jobs, whatever, right? But the situation that you were put in was not by the landlords. It was of your own doing. You need to take responsibility for that. But, these people, they don't take responsibility. They depend upon the government to take care of them and handle their bad decisions and their bad choices in life. And that's just dumb. A new ordinance Mayor Quentin Lucas introduced Thursday would ban that practice and make it illegal for landlords to deny a prospective tenant because of how they pay rent. Advocates say banning the practice, called source of income discrimination, will open more doors for poor and working class tenants to find affordable housing without restrictions. Council members Eric Bunch, Rihanna Parks Shaw, Daryl Curls, Jonathan Duncan, and Andrea Bowe have signed on to co-sponsor the legislation, which was crafted by KC Tenants. So yeah, a tenant rights group, right, are the ones who crafted the legislation. And of course, tenants outnumber landlords. So all of these politicians are getting on board, not thinking about the unintended consequences of this, not thinking about, hey, what is the landlord's reaction to this? Why is this not good for the landlords, right? And they need to be asking these questions. They need to be asking these questions because the property owners are the ones who are paying the taxes here. They're the ones who are keeping these properties well maintained. They're the ones who are providing the housing. And if these people are no longer providing the housing, that's going to be very, very bad for these tenants, okay? So what usually is happening in places that pass these sort of laws is the landlords are tightening up their other tenant criterias, okay? So they're saying, hey, okay, we cannot turn down these Section 8 vouchers anymore. We're going to follow the law, but at the same time, we are going to require a higher credit score or a better credit history. We're going to require higher income requirements, and we're going to have higher security deposits. We're going to, basically put a situation where the housing is less affordable because they have to. They have to if the tenant is a person with a voucher, because it's going to involve them incurring additional costs. Okay, and possibly taking tenants in that are going to do more damage to the properties. So yeah, the housing will be less affordable because of this, right? And Kansas City is a very affordable place, and that is relatively speaking compared to other cities throughout the entire country, right? That doesn't mean that it's cheap there, but it is affordable, okay? It's in the Midwest. The cost of living in Kansas City is not that high. I mean, compared to, like the coasts, for example, right? And, there are, I can give you an example. My rental properties, they're inexpensive duplexes, and they are renting for less than $1,000 a month per side. Okay, so if you're able to get housing where you have 2 or 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, half of a duplex with a 1-car garage for less than $1,000 a month, well, you're doing pretty good in my opinion. Okay, even if it isn't in the greatest neighborhood. But you might not be able to find that after this sort of law passes. Now, like I've said many times before, also, I actually have Section 8 tenants inside one of my units right now. And I don't want to participate in the program anymore because I've had too many issues with it. Too many little nitpicking issues that I've had to fix that I shouldn't have had to fix, okay? And it's cost me thousands of dollars. And so I just don't feel like dealing with that anymore. Now, I'm not going to evict the tenant who's in my unit who is Section 8 right now, but going forward, I don't want to accept any more of them and participate and jump through all these stupid hoops, okay? So keeping that in mind, I don't want this sort of law to spread within the same county to the city where I do invest. This legislation will help remove historical racial barriers of redlining in our city, Councilmember Duncan said. It will give families the freedom to choose where they want to live, not where a landlord will allow them to live. And that's a bunch of garbage right there, okay? Like I said before, right? If a landlord doesn't want you up in there, regardless of what the law says, they're going to find a reason to deny your application, okay? And I don't think that this is going to have the sort of impact that these politicians think it's going to have, or that these tenant rights groups think it's going to have. It's not like all of a sudden the people with the vouchers are going to go out and say, oh man, I instantly was able to find a place. No, it's not going to work that way, because there's still going to be a very, there's going to be a lot of pushback against this sort of law, okay? And it's going to make it just as difficult as it was before the law. And I'm pretty sure this is going to pass. Right now, it's just a proposal, but I'm 99% sure that this sort of thing is going to pass. Now, Missouri is an interesting state. And I've seen this sort of thing happen in Missouri before, where local jurisdictions pass these very anti-property rights types of laws, right? And what I've seen happen is that the state government actually will jump in sometimes and ban like local jurisdictions from being able to pass this sort of law, right? And say, hey, no, we don't want this in our state. And I'm hoping that something like that happens within the state of Missouri, because that would at least be able to protect us landlords. Because you know what, my opinion, my belief is that, our property rights, they trump these, these feel-good motions, these things that these politicians are pushing that are going to have negligible impact on the actual tenants, right? It's because guess what? The good landlords, the people like me, we're the ones who end up suffering because of it. The bad landlords are going to continue with their bad actions regardless of what the law says. So like I said, this is going to have a negligible, at best, impact on the people who have Section 8 vouchers. It's not going to make much of a difference, if any. Okay, so I don't like the fact that this law will be on the books, because somebody like me would end up getting a fine or multiple fines, and I'm doing everything right.